Hello, this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we are going to be talking about, well, there's so much news going on right now, but I saw a clip last night with Stacey Abrams. She was on the Drew Barrymore show, and I already posted an article about it. Quite a bit of traction of people talking about it. She is possibly running again. I don't know if possibly running for governor, but she told Drew Barrymore she's going to run again, which I'll show you the clip of her fawning over that answer for possibly running again. But she also mentioned something about when she was in college and how she had a boyfriend who thought she was too ambitious and would be alone. And I would have kept that story to myself, and we'll get into why I say that. But it's interesting. So we'll have a bit of I think laughter at her expense a bit today, but also a very alarming and tragic story I want to talk about today. There was a car, allegedly a child who's 13 years old was stealing cars out in DC and was shot to death. And people are very upset. The person who shot him, like I believe it was like a homeowner who saw him stealing and stuff, are upset that he wasn't arrested. And so there's a lot of discussion. I don't think there's a ton that we know about it, but I'm going to read the article. And there's something that people aren't really discussing, at least in the threads that I'm seeing. People are like, oh, it's racism. Oh, it's people protecting their property, and their property isn't more important than someone's life. And it is very sad also that this is a child. And I think parents need to, whatever this crime spree is right now, that's also gripping kids. There's a lot of kids around the country and cities that are involved in stealing cars and car rings. It's happening here in Michigan. I was talking to my sister about this story today, and she told me about how her manager went to, I think, Wisconsin, and there was just a car ring going around, and they stole like a battery or something. No, I think the engine or something out of a car that he rented. And the people let him know, like, hey, there's kids like from like 11 to 15 that are just stealing cars. And people need to let their kids know that it is dangerous out here, and not everyone is going to treat you like a child just because they see you are a child, and your life could literally be on the line. I don't. They're like, there needs to be a come to Jesus moment for a lot of different reasons, but I use the term because like parents, grandparents, whoever's raising these kids needs to sit them down and really have them reflect on how they could lose their lives out here on the streets. So contrasting kind of tones with today's stories. And if there's time, I want to talk about this TikTok that I saw with a gay leftist Swiftie, Taylor Swift fan, who's upset at the prospect of her being a billionaire. Again, if we get to that, I'm going to dissect that. If not, we'll do that sometime later. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blackteanews.com, check out different articles that I've written on the website. Like I did already write one about Stacey Abrams, but we are going to go into it today. So you can check out articles that I have there. You can check out different merch that I have on the website as well. Let me show you. Well, just get this out the way. I do have my book, of course, guys, Blatantly Against Abortion. It'll be coming out soon. So you can go on the website, make sure you're putting in your info so you can get up to date on when you guys can pre-order that. You got the Pro-Choice Men Are Sus. So I love that shirt. I have the You Are Not That Special. I also have those in cute little mugs. So you guys can go ahead and check out that good stuff on the website, help to support. Also, if you like what I do at blacktnews.com, consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, cost to do all sorts of things. Of course, you're aware of that. Nothing is free. We don't live in some kind of magical utopia. So if you would like to help with it overhead, God bless you. I really appreciate it. Otherwise, I thank you guys for liking, for sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. We're getting new subscribers all the time. We're steadily growing, and I appreciate it. And we appreciate everyone who lets everyone else know about Black Teen News. First thing I want to note, on a sadder note, if you're in the MAGA crowd, you probably, well, even if you're not in the MAGA crowd, you probably know about Diamond and Silk. And so Diamond passed away. And so I know they had, Silk had put on social media a few weeks ago, I think, stating like, if you believe in the power of prayer, please pray for her. And so I didn't know what was wrong, but did pray for her. And so she seemed to be all right, at least from what we knew on social media. But she did pass away, and President Trump and other folks are putting out statements. So I wanted to play this video way back when they first came on the scene in 2016. There's some cursing in it, but this was like a rant about Mitt Romney after he gave that speech when he was like, Trump wine didn't work and Trump this didn't work, and he listed like 6 things. I'm like, I thought it was a dumb speech, and I'll talk about why I thought it was a dumb speech. But this video of Diamond and Silk, which I've had so many since then, but this was one as they were starting their rise that it stuck out to me. And it's always fun to bash Mitt Romney. So I'm going to go ahead and go down memory lane with Diamond and Silk at least one last time. Give me one second. There we go.
Hey, y'all. Okay, so I just got through looking at Mitt Romney. Mm-hmm. Mitt, why are you being a bitch? Wow. You are being a straight bitch. Now, Mitt Romney is on TV trying to bash Donald Trump when he should have been bashing himself. That's right. This is what we call a straight thief. That's right. This person, what Mitt Romney wants to do is he wants to take and he wants to try to steal an election. Mitt, you don't get to tell us who to vote for. No, we can vote for whoever we want to vote for. Right. You are not rallying. Yeah. You are a loser twice. Why don't you go and hide in a Mitt and then try to throw yourself in a pit and just stay down there? Go back and hide it because we don't want to hear nothing that you got to say. And see, the Trump train is moving. Yes. You better get the hell out of the way. That's right. You don't get to hijack the train. No, you don't. You ain't gonna steal the damn train. No, you're not. We don't need you leading the train. No. What we need you to do is you get on board and get the hell out of the way. That's right. We are voting for Donald J. Trump, and don't your ass get it twisted.
Yeah, so that was an intense one. So yeah, that's the one I remember way back in the day when they first started. And I was so annoyed when Mitt Romney did that speech because everybody has to follow their convictions, but politics is a team sport. Especially if you're like Republican Democrat and you're like involved, like some people are just identify as Republican Democrat. They're not involved in the process or whatever of the inner workings of the party. We'll never go to a delegate meeting or the RNC conventions and stuff like that. Most people, election time, let me go to the polls, check who I like, who I don't like. But if you're like entrenched in it, it's a team sport. It's a team sport. And he has had the honor of being the nominee of the Republican Party to be president. He's had that honor. So to interject himself so much to try to derail Trump, I just didn't think was appropriate, in my opinion. I didn't like it, and I thought his how he tried to derail him was kind of whack. Like he had like Trump steaks, he's like Trump wine, all these, like he had like a few things that failed, and I'm like, that's not going to work convincing people who are sold in, like to have the buy-in for Trump when they see like he has golden toilets, that his name is on all these buildings, that he had this successful TV show for years, that he's like living in opulence. It won't compute just because a wine didn't make it that you're trying to sell him as some kind of failure in business. It's just not going to seep it. The perception just isn't there. Like it doesn't fit the brand. You're not going to break that brand with your silly little message. So he really overestimated himself when he did that. And also when you look up Trump and you look up stuff that there's like 500 subsidiaries like under Trump, and I'm just like, people aren't going to flip out because you brought up Trump wine or something. And then after that, Trump was like, oh, let me sell some Trump wine. And I think he like sold a couple of those things right after it. So I hated when Mitt Romney did that. I super didn't appreciate it, because I'm like, okay, I can understand you don't want him to be the nominee, but what happens if he is? What happens if he is? There's still Mitt Romney's video bashing Trump and saying why he shouldn't be president. There's still that. And he didn't end up, apparently, I don't think he voted for him. I think he said he voted for somebody else. But he sure did try to be his Secretary of State. Now, Trump was apparently trolling him when he was entertaining him. But he sure did. There's that, I don't have it on me, but you've probably seen that picture of him sitting at Mar-a-Lago and he's kind of smiling. And it looks so awkward. Like he's got a gun to his head or something. So, yeah, I appreciated that rant from Diamond and Silk at the time, though not a fan of like all the cursing and stuff, but they had some good rants and they played very well off of each other. So a lot of MAGA folks are sad to lose such an advocate today, and someone who loved the country a lot. You can disagree with folks all you want, but they really did at least have a love for the country, and obviously a love for Trump. So yeah, just keep their families in prayer. Keep her family in prayer. So let's go ahead and talk about the Stacey Abrams video. I am not based out of Georgia. There's a comment question. I'm in Michigan. But let's go ahead and talk about Stacey Abrams. So she was on Drew Barrymore's show, and she brought up someone who she used to date in college, and she said he was mean, and because she didn't say this was the reason why he was mean, but she gave an example of treatment toward her, and he said that she was too ambitious and that she was going to be alone. So here's a snippet of that.
So what's next? Are you going to run again?
Wrong one.
So when I was in college, I fell in love with a boy who was mean to me.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You know what? We've all done that.
Yeah, well, he broke up with me, and he said that I was too ambitious and wanted too many things, and I would end up alone and lonely. And so I got really mad. And then I was like, fine, I'm going to figure out all the things I'm going to do to make him rue the day that he was mean to me. And so I'm old, I'm 49. So
I'm maybe 48. We're right next to each other.
So you'll appreciate this. This was before Excel. This is when it was Lotus 1, 2, 3.
Right. Okay.
And you had to go to the computer lab because owning a computer meant that you could buy the world. So
right.
I went to the computer lab at Spelman and I did a spreadsheet and I laid out all the things I was going to accomplish and all the ways I was going to just be fantastic and magnificent. And I don't know if he's ever going to see it, but I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay on my spreadsheet.
So in this clip that is circulating around Twitter, there's at least a lot of people pointing out the fact that he seemed to be correct. I would not have shared that story. I would not have shared that story myself. I don't, because if the goal was to bring him up to make him look like a fool, when he said she's too ambitious and she just lost the governorship twice. Now, politics, you have to run the race to see if you're going to win. You have to run races. I know people who've run races, like my well, I guess she's not my congresswoman anymore, Brenda Lawrence. She ran a couple times for Congress, and didn't quite make it, and then she finally, got in there. So it takes a couple times, but losing the governorship is pretty big, and that's pretty big. But it was so close the first time. Not like extraordinarily close, but it was closer than it was before. So it was like 55,000 votes the first time in 2018, but she never like really conceded. She was going around saying that she actually won, and that she was cheated. People were talking about how Kemp, was Secretary of State, and that it wasn't legit, and accusing him of cheating, and that she should have been the person who was elected. And instead of everyone like saying, nah, you need to get over that, the Democrats kept promoting her just up and up and up. That she kept getting interviews with the media. But when the president, which at the time this was Donald Trump, delivers a State of the Union address, the opposite party normally has someone deliver a speech that is a rebuttal. They selected Stacey Abrams. Why? Because they apparently wanted to keep having her star rise, and she was relevant in what they wanted to do, etc. This was a person that they wanted to represent where they were going or their future or whatnot. So she lost the Georgia election in 2018. In 2019, Trump does the State of the Union address. It's like in February, right? And so he gave the State of the Union address, and she gave the rebuttal. She was also like in Star Trek. She was played like the president of the Earth. She was on magazine covers, and they did all these profiles on her, just glowing profiles of Stacey Abrams, because they propped her up as a celebrity. Like, you had all these people like really putting money into her race. You had, if I'm not mistaken, I think weren't there celebrities going like door to door at dorms, telling people to vote? I do remember, I think Katy Perry, if I'm not mistaken, doing that. If perhaps it was another person running, but I do think it was in Georgia, and I do think it was Stacey Abrams. But people just wanted her to win, and when she lost, people were willing to play along with her not winning. So maybe because she went ahead and helped with like mobilizing Democrats to register to vote, and they're like, oh, 2020 she got 800,000 people registered to vote, and of course things didn't go our way in Georgia, in 2020, but in 2022, that it didn't work out for her. As a matter of fact, there was a wider gap, and Kemp won by, it was less than 300,000 votes, but it was up there. So she got totally blown out. So she's lost twice for this position. I don't know if she says she's going to run again, or because thinking about running again. I don't know if that's going to be her aspiration, that she's going to go for it again. But you know what? If she wants to run again, the Democrats may run her again. And maybe she'll have a better shot this time, because Kemp was, an incumbent. And even with the drama with Kemp and Trump and him coming for him and trying to, get him out and other stuff, he still like obviously won his primary and won his election, very handedly. So maybe if she doesn't have to face an incumbent, maybe she'll feel like she can go ahead and do it again. But fresh off of this back-to-back loss, she tells a story about how her ex-boyfriend at college said she was too ambitious. Now, I don't know I'm not privy to their conversations, and you aren't either, to know what specifically he was talking about as far as her being too ambitious. But man, that's some, again, if the goal was to make him look like he was a dummy who didn't know any better, and she proved him wrong, he might be proud of the stuff that she's accomplished. You know, she's worked in politics, and she's written books and other stuff. Like he might be impressed with what she's been able to pull off and put in her spreadsheet. But again, she did just lose the governorship twice. So is he wrong about her being too ambitious? No, I think people need to be ambitious and shoot their shots and etc. But she told the story as if he was, so mean for saying that, when so many people in the comments, whether on the article that I posted on Facebook that I wrote, or where this video is on Twitter, people are just like, man, this guy, does he know the lottery numbers? Because he just pegged her correctly. And so he said she was too ambitious and that she was going to be alone. And I wouldn't have told this story. I just wouldn't have told the story because she still is single. Like she told Gayle King, maybe, I guess it would have been, of course, last year by now, but maybe 2 years, maybe it was in 2021 or something. She had an interview, or it might have been 2022, but she told Gayle King, if anybody is interested, she's, available or something. So she did put that out there. Her memoir said, at 28, she expected to kind of be married and with kids. And she's older than me, obviously, but I'm a single woman, so my heart goes out to her. But again, I just wouldn't have told that story. I would have kept that to myself. Especially if she's like, aha, you were wrong. Nah, she getting roasted. She just getting roasted. So here's anyway, Drew Barrymore talking about asking the question about her running again.
So what's next? Are you going to run again? Are you going? Do we get to look forward to this and galvanize again?
I will likely run again.
Yes!
I don't know what.
Yes! Oh my God. So are you going to go up against some tough men who kind of don't always play fair?
Well, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And if it doesn't work, you try again.
Now, what the heck kind of question is that? First of all, why is Drew Barrymore so excited about her running again? She just lost twice for the governorship. What do you expect her to run for? Which, by the way, people were kind of thinking about her. I don't know how. I'm not saying that Biden seriously considered her as someone to run as his running mate when he ran for president, but people were throwing her name out there. Why do they want to continuously? Like, I know there's a lot of people in politics, particularly on the left, who fail up. There's kind of people in the Biden administration who should not be there and are like, some are diversity hires, some are like spite hires. It seems like Jennifer Granholm, for example, who's our energy secretary. She is my former governor in Michigan. Do you know the time period that she presided over? What we call that time period in Michigan when she was governor? The lost decade. So just remember that every time you drive by a gas station, you see a price you don't like. So she was good at her job. So there are people who fail upwards. But I don't understand this love and this passion for this figure of Stacey Abrams that they've just built up in their minds. They're so like, oh, so like she's got to run for something else, not the governorship. Like, I mean, and she could try again, maybe. But if you're a Democrat and you just are content with just letting that happen, like 3 for 3, you're a fool. You're a fool. And you know what? Maybe again, it'll be easier for her than it was this time. But the people have said no. I don't understand Drew Barrymore's excitement, and she's also coddling her delusions about election fraud. She's like, "Are you going to go up against men who don't play fair?" How's Kemp not playing fair? Like, what do you have other than like Abrams like allegations about stuff to say that? And she didn't say his name specifically, but that's obviously the implication that she has gone up against men who don't play fair, and that's why she's not currently sitting in the governor's mansion. So another thing I want to point out that people are pointing out is that the crowd was masked in these yellow masks, and they're sitting on the couches having a conversation. Now, what, like, we're really still doing that? Masking making the audience mask while the the important people get to just chat it up or whatever. If it's really, because the masks don't work, right? Like, we can like admit that even Lena Wynn some time ago, more than a year ago, I think at this point, said they're like facial decorations at this point. So I think it's safe to say they don't work. So if people are really that concerned about COVID that they're making the whole audience mask, maybe your show is not important enough to risk people's health to actually film, because it is just a talk show. It is just a talk show. It's not like people have to go, like a grocery store. People need to go buy goods and services. It is a talk show. It is a talk show that you could have filmed, live streamed it. You even need to meet face to face. So if it is that dangerous that the audience is all like wearing masks like that, then should you even be filming is the question, and putting people's lives at jeopardy. But it also reminded me of this goodie, which caused a big stir. So Stacey Abrams had posted this picture of her in a classroom with all these kids who are masked, and she's obviously not. And then after a lot of outrage, she ended up deleting it because it looks freaking awful. So kids who are very, very low risk to the COVID complications, or particularly the fatalities, they kept masking the kids. They wanted them out of schools, etc. So here comes Stacey Abrams, who obviously has comorbidities and is at a far greater risk of COVID than these children, is there maskless while all of them are muzzled. So she ended up taking it down, but the internet is forever, and we have not forgotten. And so it still just is a contrast. Like, we remember. Another thing about Stacey Abrams' campaign, and I'll say this and I think we'll move on, is that she's also, it was reported that they owed like $1 million. They're like $1 million in debt to like vendors and stuff. She got like $100 million for her campaign. She let go, and we broke down the story as it kind of started exploding. She let go her staffers like a week after the election, while Kemp's like people paid them to the end of the month, to into November, and gave them bonuses. And I'm like, that's messed up. She raised all this money and they couldn't get like bonuses and stuff. Because I haven't worked for a campaign. I've done like consulting stuff and done like videos and other stuff like that. But to be like a actual like paid staffer, haven't done that. But I have worked at the Michigan Republican Party, and at the end of the year to be able to stay on, that's a good feeling. Not everybody can stay on quite as long, but they let a lot of field people go like sooner rather than later. But people, at least when I was there, we all got bonuses. So that was great. That was great. So reading the stories about how people are like, I'm thinking about Christmas and how people are going to pay the rest of the bills for the rest of the year and stuff. I'm like, that really sucks for them. It really sucks for them. That uncertainty. That's one thing that really sucks about working at politics, is once the campaign season is over, what exactly are you going to do next? Like, I mean, you try to figure it out, but you don't always have those answers very quickly. So she also spent like money buying like a hype house for TikToks that they didn't really use. So, oh shoot, my camera just went out for a second. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I clicked something I shouldn't have. So anyway, when you're working a campaign, the uncertainty really sucks. So I feel for those staffers, but they see how much money that she raised, and they're like, you didn't spend it well. So that they spent it on a hype house. They bought a swag truck, and this was all to try to get like more youth vote, which it ended up being like a big waste for them. But just overall, just so people know, there was like record sort of youth vote, but there was like record breaking votes everywhere. So the Democrats are really trying to play up how big of an impact the youth had on elections, when the truth is that since there was such high participation, they didn't overwhelmingly sway the election, maybe in some areas, but overall didn't really sway it like how they're trying to make it seem like they did. But anyway, I'm not looking forward to Stacey Abrams trying to run another race. The media fawning still puzzles me. But it looks like we're going to have her again at some point in time. So moving on, let's move on. There is a very tragic story that people are talking about right now in DC, which at first when I saw people talking about it, didn't register that people were talking about like this happened in DC. But there was a 13-year-old who was shot and killed after a homeowner says that this child was breaking into cars. So I'm going to go ahead and just read the story from Fox 5, Washington, D.C. This is as far as what we know that's out there right now. And then I will offer my commentary and talk about the different commentary that people are having surrounding this. Washington, a 13-year-old is dead after being shot by a homeowner who claimed the boy was breaking into vehicles in a northeast DC neighborhood early Saturday morning, according to police. The Metropolitan Police Department said the shooting happened around 3:56 a.m. in the 1000 block of Quincy Street, not far from Brookland Middle School and Turkey Thicket Recreation Center. According to investigators, the unidentified homeowner confronted and shot the 13-year-old after claiming that the boy was breaking into several vehicles along the street. They said the boy was shot multiple times. There is no indication of what placed the 911 call reporting the incident. Police did not release specific details about the confrontation, but add that there was no indication that the 13-year-old was armed. The 13-year-old was identified by police as Caron Blake of Northeast DC Police, confirmed to Fox 5 that Blake was a student at Brookland Middle School. Investigators said that when officers arrived at the scene, they found the homeowner performing CPR on the boy. The 13-year-old was taken to an area hospital after the shooting and later pronounced dead. Investigators said that the firearm used in the shooting was legally registered and the homeowner is cooperating with authorities. While investigating the incident, police found a car on Quincy Street that had been previously reported stolen and is believed to have been used by the 13-year-old. Investigators believe 2 other juveniles were also involved in the incident. According to a neighbor in the area, the 2 tried fleeing the scene in a vehicle before bailing out in an alley and running away on foot. Authorities are still working to determine whether any criminal charges are warranted against the homeowner. Anyone with information on this shooting is asked to, and they give a number or send a tip. So based on that story, in my mind, well, first of all, I don't like to jump as far as the commentary on a lot of this stuff. So I'm not going to speculate things. Based on what I read, I'm not seeing the how did it escalate to him having to shoot a 13-year-old or feeling like he needed to shoot a 13-year-old. In there, they said they don't see a weapon. That doesn't mean that there's not one. These stories have changed. Media has reported falsely things before. That's why I'm not like, I usually don't jump too harsh on things when stories first kind of start breaking, because you find out new information and the media is so quick to paint one narrative that all these other details that maybe aren't true get in the atmosphere so quick, and then people have to keep trying to untangle the web of lies. A big example of that is like a lot of information that went out during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, for example. So, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but there's a lot of people who still believe a lot of misinformation regarding, regardless of how you feel about it. There's a lot of people who believe a lot of not true things to this day. So I like to be careful with this stuff. But right now they're not charging the homeowner. That doesn't mean that they're not going to. When I registered that it was DC, I remembered DC has had a terrible problem with carjackings, and there's kids involved like doing it. And as I mentioned at the top of the hour, there are kids across the country that apparently involved in like stealing cars. I saw some people in the comments who were like, "Oh, this is racism. Oh, they just assumed." And it seemed like a lot of people didn't read the article when because they posted the picture of this young man, statement from his school, saying that he liked fashion and football, and people are saying, "Oh, it's racism. It seems like they were stealing cars," or really reading into it. And I'm like, it kind of at least seems from the article that that's what was going down, or at least that was a perception. And there was other kids involved, and it was like 3 a.m., almost 4 a.m. So there's a lot of sketchy things going on. But there is a problem with car theft in DC. And there's an issue with it in Michigan right now, like the Detroit area, young kids stealing cars. And I mentioned how I was talking to my sister about the story, and she mentioned to her boss, and he was in a rental because he was doing something for work, and he was in, I think, Wisconsin, and some kids stole the engine out of his car. And they said, yep, there's just like a group of like 11 to 15 year olds that are doing like chop shop stuff. And I was trying to find a Detroit news report, and there's like someone was reporting and saying these kids just think it's fun to be still in these cars. So what I really want to say about this story is that people need to talk to their kids and let them know, regardless of how you feel about this, because there's people like nothing is worth, no sort of property is worth someone's life, which the reply to that would be, then don't risk your life trying to steal stuff. Because you can't help how the other person's going to feel about your life. You can't help that. So you have to do what's best to preserve your life. And parents, grandparents, whoever is raising these children, need to drill that into their heads that this is not a game, that their life is on the line, and they might not come home. I would show children this story, and I wouldn't be like, "Oh, racism, this, all blah, blah." I would say, look what happened to this child who was going around doing stuff he should not have been doing, out late when he should have been home, and someone shot him dead. That could be you if you keep doing stuff like this. If you keep hanging around the wrong people. Just because you are a child or you look like a child, not all children look like children, especially in the middle of the night. But some people aren't going to treat you like a child, especially if they happen to think their lives are online or heightened situations or whatever. You might not survive. That is a lesson that I think people need to be drilling into their kids, because there has been like such a explosion of crime everywhere. And it seems like people feel entitled, like they're righteous in their violence, in their theft. Like these crazy scenes we're seeing, people going into these flash mobs or crazy scenes in stores, with people fighting, or just the different riots that we had, like the one in Kenosha. I had a big episode where I went through what the kind of stuff that was happening when Kyle Rittenhouse actually went out on the streets that night and played some of the mentality of folks out there rioting. And there's one elderly man. he was like spraying, he had a fire extinguisher, and his like building was on fire, and he's also spraying it at people who were trying to steal stuff. And then somebody came and just clocked him and broke his jaw. And then this woman who was recording just started screaming. She's like this, why are you guys doing this? And there was a girl, a black girl, who was just like, yeah, no, you don't understand. He was laying females out with the air. He was laying females out. And she's like, this man's bleeding. I don't know if he's gonna live. And they're saying, you gotta understand, when these black men are scared and they doing it. And that's how she sounded. That's how she sounded. So they felt entitled, empowered by the different sort of narratives to go out and do these heinous things. And if you criticize them, they'll be like, well, you care about stuff more than you care about Black lives. It's like, no, you have, when people say Black Lives Matter and you hear the right go, all lives matter, like, here's the truth. You have to care about your life. Does your life matter to you? You have to make good decisions for yourself if you value your life, because not everyone is going to. Not everyone is going to. I don't know how it escalated to this homeowner shooting this 13-year-old. I don't know how that happened. I'm assuming there had to be some kind of confrontation. I don't know. But what I do know is that people need to use this example. When my dad was a kid, he did crazy stuff. My grandmother heard a story, and it must have been God that she told him this story, because he had crazy ideas about climbing telephone poles and doing all kinds of different stuff. And she heard a story about a kid who was messing around and ended up, getting electrocuted and dying. And so she's like, you see this dumb kid? And she's like, this dumb kid died because he did X. And so she instilled that in him, that knocked that idea out of his head. Like, my mom would hear stories in the news like, this kid did this and this happened because this kid, because X, Y, and Z. You're like, you're talking about scaring the kids. Yes, I am. Put some reality in their heads. Put some reality in their heads before someone takes their life. They should not be out here in the streets. Now, maybe there's some people that are hard-headed and unfortunately will learn the hard way. And sometimes the hard way is you calling the police or something yourself. There's got to be a lot of people who are aware of the fact that their kids are out there doing these flash mobs on this stuff and got stuff they got no business having. I've heard some stories of grandmothers and parents turning folks in, but we got to do something. The attitudes that people have, the crime that's going on, it just cannot continue like this. And do we really want the solution to be that everybody just gets thrown in jail? I mean, if that's what it's got to be, it's got to be. But you got to knock some sense to these kids. This is, and I heard no one like in the threads talking in the story, just saying like, y'all need to talk to these kids and tell them not to. It was all like upset about the homeowner. And there were people like, there was extreme on both sides. People who were like, you shouldn't ever confront somebody about that kind of stuff, protect your property. And some people like, well, he deserved it. I'm like, I'm not saying any of that. We don't even know like how it escalated. He could be totally, the kid shouldn't have been stealing cars, allegedly, if that was happening. It just seems like that was the case. I don't know if there is a justifiable reason to how the altercation occurred for him to have killed that child and shot him several times. We don't have that kind of information. What I do know, again, you tell your kids, let them know, not everyone, if they go down these streets, there's not a guarantee that they're going to get home. And for the people who are downplaying the threat of these kids, not too long ago, this news story happened.
Hundreds of Vietnamese Americans.
Wrong video. I'm so sorry. That's the wrong video. Give me 1 second. It was all dramatic too. Dang it. Dagnabbit. I just had it in my other files. Well, I guess when I play this back and chop this video, you guys will see the news footage. But last year, there was a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old in DC who stole a car of an Uber driver, and they had a taser. And the man was like confronting them, and they tased him. And so they started driving off, and he was still like caught in the door. If you've seen the video, it's horrific. And they end up crashing. This is like around the Navy Yard. And then if it's, I don't know if it's in the Navy Yard or around the Navy Yard. I've been to this area quite a few times. My sister used to live over there. So this all very jarring to me seeing this, because I know this area. It wouldn't be an impossibility that something could happen, you know, to someone you know. And it is not like it's a, I don't know, DC's kind of dangerous right now. I was gonna say it's not like it's a deep neck of the woods. DC might be dangerous all over the place, but they crash and he dies. And as they're getting out the car, something that really freaked people out and upset people is they're like, "Where's my phone? Where's my phone?" And people are like, "This man is dead and got dragged, and you tried to tase him." And you're like, "Where's my phone? Where's my phone?" Now, they might not have realized the severity of his condition at that time. But a man died, and he was a Pakistani man who drove Uber. It was a very crazy story. So when I saw that it was DC, I was like, oh yeah, DC has a huge problem right now as far as the crime, particularly with the carjackings. So I know what we're gonna do to get this fixed in the short term, other than, especially since you got so many people who don't want the police to do anything, and you got all these prosecutors who don't want to do anything. But we have to have some kind of change in our homes. And like I said, you got to put the fear of God in some of these kids and knock some sense into them and say, this child did not come home. And, you know, we don't have all the facts of the story. There's going to be an investigation. I don't know if they're going to say that this homeowner, you know, is going to be charged for his murder or what. But there's definitely going to be people playing it up as, like I said, there's already people saying it was racism, all this other kind of stuff. At least for what we know, go tell your kids about this story. If you have any indication or inclination that they might be doing shady stuff or could possibly do some shady stuff, or maybe not, just let them know. Like, did anyone else have parents who would say, this crazy thing happened, do not be that crazy child because something could happen to you. Something could happen to you. One of the reasons there's like big debates and stuff about spanking, and I didn't get spanked and stuff very often, but one thing that like my parents were like, you got to be disciplined for is if you lied. Because my dad always said, if you were in a life or death situation, he has to know that he can trust you. So he can take the truth, whatever the truth is, but you got to tell the truth. And so if we did something that was like pretty, not like, we definitely weren't supposed to like fib or anything like that. Even if it was a joke, it's like, no, you don't tell a joke if it's a dishonest, it's a lie. It was very important in our house to not be dishonest. But if you did something that was like massive deception, you got in trouble. I did participate in a massive deception one time, but I'm not going into that story. But we got to go back to instilling some values in our kids, because you might be in a life or death situation. Don't let it continue to go south like this. Don't let it continue to go south. Anyway, I do have a bit. It's not that much time. But let's. I don't mind not spending a lot of time on it. Let's go ahead and watch this Taylor Swift video. I promise I do have it. I just saw it in my files. I'm sorry about that other video. Yeah, so I saw this on TikTok. This person is a student trying to get her PhD, I think. She's a left-wing gay Taylor Swift activist, and she's upset that she could possibly be a billionaire. So this rant's very peculiar to me.
Taylor Swift being a billionaire possibly be unethical if all she does is sing and have concerts? So glad you asked. Let's discuss. First of all, that statement is already unfortunately incorrect. Taylor Swift does also make a lot of money on merch, and there's a lack of transparency surrounding that supply chain. And given the lack of transparency, it is almost certain that not everyone who works on those products receives a living wage or works in good labor conditions. But let's even put that aside and just simply use one of her world tours as an example. Taylor Swift grossed approximately $266 million from the Reputation tour, and in that year she earned approximately $185 million of pre-tax income. We don't know exactly how much of that was profit, but this says that that income was largely thanks to this tour. So let's assume that she made half of that, or $90 million of profit from the tour. She most likely even made more than that. $90 million would be roughly third of the commercial value of the $266 million tour. And so if Taylor Swift was being compensated fairly and proportionally for her labor, she should be producing approximately 1/3 of all the labor required to make this tour happen. But of course, we know that that is not happening, because while this tour absolutely requires Taylor Swift's labor, and while she should be compensated fairly and handsomely for that labor, it also requires the labor of thousands and thousands of working class people, all the way from people on Taylor Swift's own team to audio engineers to backup dancers to bodyguards to people setting up the stage and selling beverages and snacks, etc. And so let's give Taylor the absolute most benevolent benefit of the doubt and assume that all of these people are earning the equivalent of $90,000 per year for 40 hours of labor per week. They are almost definitely, the majority of them, making much less than that. But Taylor Swift would still be earning 1,000 times the amount of these people, which, if we lived in a fair and just world, would mean Taylor Swift was contributing 1,000 times the labor, or 40,000 hours of work per week on this tour, which is the equivalent of 10 hours a day every single day for 11 years straight of labor, just on the Reputation tour. Not even the album, just the tour alone. But of course, that's not what's happening. As talented and hardworking as Taylor Swift is, it is physically impossible for her to earn the amount of money that she is making. She's getting that money because she's taking it from working class people, people who are producing, let's say, $90,000 worth of commercial value for this tour in the form of their labor, but only receiving 50,000 or less of that in return. Taylor Swift and all other, million billionaire capitalists are stealing that 40,000 extra dollars worth of labor, and she's doing it to thousands and thousands of people, enough people to amass that $90 million paycheck that she took for herself. If Taylor Swift becomes a billionaire, that means that she committed $1 billion worth of what is effectively labor theft, simply because it is legal to do so in our current system. But just because something is legal does not make it ethical.
TikTok, guys. So my when I saw that video, my first thought was this tweet that I ran across the other day. It's from last year, but I guess someone screenshot it and they post it quite often. This is from Mystery Grove Publishing. Reminder: communism is when ugly, deformed freaks make it illegal to be normal, then rob and kill all successful people out of petty resentment and cruelty. The ideology is all just window dressing. I think that's pretty dead on. So how is I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan. Even like prior to like her becoming a lefty or whatever. She has some good songs. It doesn't seem like they're not as good after she like went left. Like her earlier songs were a bit better, but she has some good songs. I'm not a big Swiftie or anything like that, which I don't listen to a lot of secular music anyway, but she's had some good ones, good music videos. She's an all right singer, not like fantastic or anything. So many people who sing better than Taylor Swift. So many people sing better than Taylor Swift. People who are in the industry, past and present. But Taylor Swift is a brand. She's been there for a long time. She has good music. She's like a product all in herself. She's more than a person. She's an entire production. So pretending like some people, I went through a lot of tweets. I'm not tweets, but the comments in the original video, and people were pointing out that, well, first of all, Taylor Swift does not pay the people running the venues. Like the venues that are there, they set the wages for their people. And some folks in the comments were saying they used to work for venues like that and they didn't get paid very well. You took the job, but that's their prerogative. Taylor Swift does not come in and pay all those people. That's not her job. That's not what she does. They pay for the space or whatever, however the contracts work out, but they pay their employees. And there's other acts that come into these venues other than Taylor Swift. And it's a big place. It's still a lot of employees. The electricity and all this, it's got to be expensive. Even when you get tax breaks, they built like Caesar Palace Arena. So we had the Palace, which, by the way, the craziest traffic I've ever seen for the Palace was when Kevin Hart came. It was terrible. That was probably the worst. He had like 2 shows, I think, that night, like a couple nights there, but the traffic was just bonkers both times. He might have had the best show there. I don't know that, but just like based on the traffic, just wanted to point that out. But anyway, the Palace, they don't have that anymore. They built the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. So instead of like Auburn Hills, like that was the place people go to Little Caesars Arena, and it's bigger and stuff. But it was like too big. And they had all these tax breaks, and they're supposed to have deals for people like who bought tickets because the taxpayers like in a way contributed to it, but they couldn't like sell out all the seats, so they had to like spend all this money like changing the colors of the seats because they were red, and they changed them to like black or something, so it wouldn't, if people weren't there, it wouldn't like stick out like red seats. There's just a lot that goes into these big places, these big properties, to make the run, the maintenance, people upkeep, not just like keeping it clean, but other sort of factors that go into it. Different, people just gonna make sure the lights work and just the heating, all that kind of stuff. It just is, it's astronomical for huge places like that. So and paying the employees, that's always a big cost of any business, but there's a lot of things going on that will work into whatever pay that the people get working in those places. And maybe they're good wages or maybe they're not, but one thing they are voluntary, and you don't have to get those jobs if you don't want those jobs. So there's that. If people have a problem with how much Taylor Swift is being paid, you guys are the ones who are paying for her music. You guys are the ones paying for the ticket cost to go to these places. They're not cheap. So, you're the ones investing your money into her. You have bought into the product. You are participating in capitalism. So your problem, if it's a system you don't like, you're certainly upholding it yourself. But as far as how much she pays other people associated with working for her, or the people who get paid for the venues, Taylor Swift, there wouldn't be a show, at least as far as her show, if Taylor Swift wasn't there. Again, There's people who sing better than Taylor, for sure. Can out-sing her, who are currently in the entertainment industry and stuff. But she is an entire brand. People have bought into Taylor Swift, and I assume she puts on a good show and people enjoy them greatly. But you know, sweeping the floors at Little Caesars Arena or wherever, it's not a value that's anywhere equivalent to Taylor Swift. And you could say it's disproportionate how she gets paid. How's it gonna be disproportionate? Who gets to judge that? Who gets to judge that? Why is it you? I sure don't want it to be the government. I sure don't want to be the government. But she can take her ball and go home. And some people are like, well, there'll always be another pop star. Yes, there'll always be someone else who rises. But that doesn't mean everyone else is going to be as iconic. There's a lot of artists out there who aren't Taylor Swift level. There's people out there who are more talented than Taylor Swift, but there aren't as many people who've learned to kind of run the game like she has, produce the music like she has, make the videos like she has. She is a packaged product that's been very well refined and fine-tuned and even remanufactured over all these years. You know, she's like buried and killed herself in a music video and like rose again. It's like, look what you made me do, which I did not like that song. It kind of grows on you a little bit, but I don't like it. The video was fine. She makes good videos. Some of the videos, there are some new ones that were, she's not always on point. So this quote again about how communism is just eventually these people killing the successful people out of petty resentment and cruelty. This is what it's like. Like they say, it's theft from how's it theft? From people voluntarily engaging in those actions. When you get the government involved to start regulating costs and all that stuff and what people make, that's not voluntary. To a degree, I guess it can be, but when the government gets involved, it's with the threat of a gun. It's with the threat of a gun. If you think people should be making thousands of dollars at a Caesar's Palace Arena or wherever, and it's just, you know, this is my area, so that's why I keep saying that one, should be getting like thousands of dollars to sweep the floor because Taylor Swift blew into town. There's not going to be as many acts that will get as much attention and sell out as many seats as Taylor Swift. And when she leaves, people still need to be employed. And people need to be able to afford their employees. So you don't know how all those costs are being divvied up and what kind of licensing contracts, and there's tons of stuff that goes into making a big place like that. Tons of different stuff. So it's just really not solely on Taylor Swift to pay for all these folks who are not her employees. And I don't know how much she pays her employees, but nobody's probably getting paid like Taylor's getting paid. But it's Taylor's music. It's Taylor's show. She brings the value. I'm not saying other people don't participate in making a good experience, but what she does is separate, and who is accountable for the venue is different than Taylor and her team. So I don't know. It's just really bizarre. Really bizarre to me. I'm just going to say this one more time. I do think this is this is from Mystery Grove Publishing. Reminder, communism is when ugly, deformed freaks make it illegal to be normal, then rob and or kill all successful people out of petty resentment and cruelty. The ideology is all just window dressing. Not everybody, just because you work hard doesn't mean that you're bringing a particular value that merits getting that cost. And which, by the way, not everyone works hard just because they're doing a task doesn't mean they're there for the hours, doesn't mean that they are working hard. I went to a restaurant the other day. It was a fast casual place, and so many people are understaffed. They didn't seem to be understaffed. they were behind, and there are people there in line, but it seemed like it was because they were just moving so slow. Someone who had been there longer than I was asked, like, do you have my order? Like, how long is it going to take my order? And they're like, well, there's 3 in front of you. And he's like, how long is it going to take? They're like, 20 minutes. I'm like, 20 minutes? Like, y'all just making some burritos? To take 20 minutes to get to his order? And there's like 3 tickets in front of him? And people just putting on their gloves, just like, so slow. I'm like, there's no sense of urgency at all. And there's some fast food places where they're like, you know, you go to Chick-fil-A, it's a well-oiled machine. You know, they have a good system, whatever it is. I've never been to a Chick-fil-A where you didn't get like great customer service. And people weren't moving with a sense of urgency. You don't get that everywhere. And it seems like you're getting that less and less now. And so in my mind, I'm just thinking like, and y'all want everyone here to get $25 an hour? And you could be going, well, maybe they move faster if they got $25 an hour. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so, especially if you're handing it to them or forcing it with the threat of the government gun. And you know what? If you just pay people all the same, just we're kind of going off in different places. And there's someone who knows that they are working harder. I also saw TikTok recently where someone argued that everyone should basically get paid the same. You're gonna kill the person who strives. You're gonna kill their buzz. You're gonna kill their motivation when they feel like what they do, no matter what they do, if they get the same kind of pay as someone who's doing the bare minimum, you're gonna kill their spirit. You're gonna kill their spirit, their work ethic. You're going to break them. Maybe that's the point. Cruelty is the point, I guess, with this ideology. So anyway, I just wanted to rant about that video. I thought it was so silly. So silly. Taylor Swift is bringing all the star power, and people wouldn't go to the show if she wasn't there. She's worth what she's making. And this is, again, I've never purchased a Taylor Swift song. And I probably never will. However, I'm aware that she's a product that people value. And these are her fans. This is a fan talking about how she's what she's doing is unethical. And she's stealing $1 billion worth of labor from people. That's crazy. She's not stealing unless she's a slave master. Which, if you know she's like doing slavery, I don't know why you guys are buying her music. There's like other moral implications that you guys should be concerned about. But if she's, you know, if people get hired to do a job and they do a job, then that's that. And if she wants to go out and just start handing out like $100 bills or something, you know, which apparently, but they think it should be more than the $100 bills, though. They think these people should be being paid thousands when Taylor comes up on the scene. That's just not how it works. And it's not realistic, and not everybody's going to generate the kind of money that she generates when she does her tours. Anyway, I don't want to keep repeating myself. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Please go to blackteennews.com. Check out different content on my website, different articles that I have, different merch that I have as well. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteennews.com/donate. And you guys can check out different merch that I have, like the Constitution's Glorious Liberty document. Got the Black Tea mug as well. I'm not the victim you're looking for. I really like that shirt as well. All kind of goodies on the website. I do apologize for the glitches today. With the camera and then playing the wrong video, but thank you for sticking with me. And as I'll probably clip that out and I'll have it again. It was a terrible story when it happened in DC with the young girls doing the car theft, and an Uber driver, you know, just trying to live out his American dream, take care of his family. And was carjacked. And you know what? Another thing about that story is that there were people who had an attitude of like, oh, he shouldn't have fought, you know, he should have just let them take the car. Like in hindsight, yeah, to save his life. But I don't know, if people want to fight for their stuff or protect their stuff, people are going to, you got to give people the space to do that as well. Like, you can't just be like, oh, it was your fault because you cared about your things. You know, that car was his livelihood. And the way that he provided for his family. Of course, now has passed away, but they had no right to try to do what they were doing. So everyone be moral, do the right thing, and we could live in a world that's better. But I just don't want people to feel like property isn't really theirs. Like, it's not yours. Like, it's like morally there's something wrong if you protect your property. I don't want people to feel like that, though. That's what a lot of people are pushing. But at the same time, people will push, it's totally acceptable to take your property. It's just a world where you just want to steal stuff out of cruelty, like that tweet said. Anyway, God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.